Mazda are a little bit late to the electric party. In fact, they didn't want to go to the party in the first place. They came to the party well dressed and everything, but they came with half a bottle of champagne and just complaining that they're not at the other party instead. The other party, of course, is fossil fuel, and at that party the decorations are faded and the building's going to be burnt down in about 10 years. Anyway, here it is, the Mazda MX-30. This is their first electric car, and I'm going to see if it's any good. It's a crossover SUV style of car, but for the city. So it's only got 124 miles of range. Apparently that goes to about 165 in the city. So you've got to wonder, who is this aimed at? We live in a world with Teslas that now do 400 miles. Even small cars like the Zoe do upwards of 250 miles and things like that. The new Fiat 500e is coming out with 199 miles of range. So where does this fit in? Firstly, I think it's actually a really nice looking car. I think it's quite a handsome car. A fairly long bonnet, not as long as it looked in the pictures weirdly, but you've got a strangely long bonnet. Being it's a conversion of a petrol car, they obviously could have gotten rid of that, you know. There's apparently a range extender version, possibly in some markets they might bring it to Europe, I'm not sure yet. So that could be why the bonnet is so big. But the interior, I think, is really something special. It's very classy looking. Another thing you'll notice, you've got these suicide doors, or freestyle doors, Mazda call them, just as you have on the BMW i3 and the Fiat 500e 3+1, which we don't get in England, but they have it in Europe. You can tell already that it's definitely a Mazda. It's a very distinctive Mazda look and shape, and yes, it does look very similar to the CX-30, of course, on which it's based. Got this nice sloping roof, quite funky curvy lights there. Quite a big chunky bumper here, which gives it that SUV sort of style. You wouldn't be too worried about knocking it when you're driving around the city. Visibility is not too bad. You've got a tiny lip up here with the spoiler. The front is my favourite angle for this. You've got quite a brow this has on it, which I think looks really good. I'm not normally a fan of long bonnets really. I would prefer to be a bit closer to the front. It's an EV, I mean they could do it. Let's get in the car. Not good weather. You'll immediately see when you get in the Mazda MX-30 that it's a really beautiful, well-judged cabin. The materials are quite nice. This is, I mean, there's very little scratchy plastic, for instance. What you do have is kind of a cloth fabric up here. Cork, lots of cork, because you might not know this, but 100 years ago, Mazda made cork. So I bored my wife with that fact already. It's, it's really nice. Now there's no sunroof, so, and it's a terrible day, so it feels a little bit dark, but it does feel very comfortable. The seats are really, really nice. Cloth, a bit of leather here. So I would say it's very good. Now I'm going to put the foot on the brake and press power. It all comes to life. You've got 3 screens. You've got a digital readout on the dash with some actual turny bits as well. What are they called? Some actual dials as well. Very bright navigation screen up here, and the climate control is a screen down here, and that's very clear. You've got just enough buttons, I think. It doesn't feel too much. And one of the coolest things is that you have a heads-up display, and that's really good when driving. Okay, well, in fact, talking about driving, let's get going. You've got a roar, so you've got an engine roar. Mazda love their engines, they're proud of their engines. So you've got a sort of a Mazda-y roar. And one of the things that you do feel is that it doesn't feel like a heavy car to drive. I mean, it's not that, I suppose it's not that heavy, that's the point. They've put a small battery in here because they call it right-sizing the battery. Right-sizing, that's their excuse for putting such a small battery in the car. They say that most Mazda drivers only drive 26 miles a day, so why bother putting in a bigger battery? They have a point that most people do drive very short distances every day, but you know, you could argue, well, you know, people do actually want to drive a long distance without having to charge endlessly. I mean, we kind of did that a while ago. I'm not someone that drives that much, so the piddling 124 miles of range actually wouldn't bother me too much. But you've got to think, if this does 124 miles and a Honda E does just over, I think it's 136 or something like that. Honda E does a bit more. Which is the more practical car? Probably this one. Because you've got a decent amount of space in the back. You've got a good boot. People like the SUV feel, the high-up SUV feel. The Honda E is obviously more fun and, you know, it's cooler. But this has a sort of a degree of premium, I'm not going to say luxury, but it's certainly quite premium feel this has. As does the Honda, of course, but you know, the Honda is a much smaller car and you can't really fit very much shopping in the back. You could actually do an IKEA trip probably in this and get some boxes in it. It does feel light and responsive. Even though actually... All right, okay. Two hands on the wheel. Okay, yeah. Sorry. 10 to 2 position. It's a very relaxing drive. Yeah, really relaxing drive. I really like it. On a rubbish, horrible day like this, it's I don't want to go too crazy with it, but yeah, it feels nice. It's 9.7 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 0 to 62 miles an hour. 271 newton meters of torque, 145 PS, and you've got a top speed of 87 miles an hour, which you're unlikely to do because that would burn through this range quite quickly, I think. Something people love about SUVs is just how high up you feel, and this definitely has that. Now, it may be SUV styling, but you're certainly not going to want to go off-road on this because the ground clearance is not very big. 4 levels of regen then. On doing the paddles on the left and right, you can actually put it down. It's almost one pedal driving. Very close to it. When you have such a small battery like this one has, as much regen as you can get is good when you're doing city driving, because that's where you're going to harvest back all of that energy and you're not going to deplete your battery quite as quickly. Corners really well. It really goes around these bends nicely. So you've got your controls, very easy to access down here. Your volume controls, you've also got them here, and also buttons for your radio stations, all the rest of it that you can flick through. Because it has got CarPlay and Android Auto, you've also got controls here for voice commands and things like that. Now, because this is so far away, this is not a touch screen. The navigation up here is not a touch screen, so you have to use this little dial down here. So that's very similar to a BMW i3. You do have CarPlay and Android Auto if you want it. Of course, if you do that, you probably don't get the navigation on the windscreen, like I'm enjoying here with the heads-up display. The cabin is nicely hot now, so I'm just going to turn that down a bit. Very clear. I love this climate control. Now, a long time ago, I used to have a Mazda 323F, and I really loved that car. There's something very comfortable I find about Mazdas, and this definitely has the comfort factor. I mean, I would say it's one of the nicest cabins in an EV I've been in. The sounds that they do, this I don't know whether you can turn it off. I haven't even looked through the menus yet. I'll do that later, but it is a bit ridiculous, but at the same time I quite like it. I feel like it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. But yeah, so when I think about Mazdas, I think about comfort, and this definitely has the comfort factor. It just feels classy, and that is what I like about Mazdas. What lovely weather to be testing a car. You know, I checked the weather before I came out, and it said it was going to be fine.
After 60 yards, turn right onto Crown Street.
Did I just miss Crown Street? Probably did.
Route recalculation. Take the next sharp right onto Vine Street. Then,
okay,
at the end of
so
the road, turn left.
We have a sharp right, so let's see what the turning circle is like. It's not too bad. Is it worth paying this sort of money for an MX-30 when you could get the MG ZS EV, which does better range, better acceleration, whatever else? Or the Zoe, for instance. You could get those instead. Now, I would say it depends really on how much you drive the car and whether you like comfort. Because this is so well spec'd and it is so comfortable, I would say this is actually worth looking at. We're just shopping around for a second-hand EV at the moment, and we're looking for a second car, and we're looking for quite a small range car. Now, if this was cheaper, then I'd probably jump at this, because I think it's really nice. The other thing is that Mazda say that the residual value on this is better than any other EV of the same sort of class, or any kind of small family car EV. The residuals will be better in this, which in theory means that if you were to buy the car outright, it won't depreciate as much, it will be worth more when you sell it. And of course it also means that in theory you should get good finance deals. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I haven't seen any lease deals available for this yet, but it will be interesting to see how good they are. I think it's going to be a really popular car once there's a whole load of them in the second-hand market. I do think at its current price, I think it's going to be difficult for people to justify paying this amount of money for this car, because people do get so hung up on the range. With any car, you have to think about your own use case and how you're going to use it, whether you need all that range. Because I could just sit here and chastise Mazda for having such a terrible range in this car. I could say that. I could say that they're 5 years too late with an EV. And you can argue that it's not Mazda's priority to do EVs, but it really has to be. In Mazda's little presentation about this car, where they started showing off their petrol engine, the Skyactiv engine, that's kind of a clue that they're really not into the electric thing, are they? So it does feel like Mazda are desperately clinging on to their petrol engines while they still can, but they don't have very much time. Then they can't sell any more fossil fuel cars in the UK from 2030 onwards. So they've got to get a move on really and produce many more EVs, which I hope they're doing. I hope they're planning to. They did say they've got a plug-in hybrid coming soon, but God, it's a bit late for that, isn't it? Hybrids are a transitionary technology. Yeah, battery EVs like this are the future. Of course, anyone going in a Mazda showroom, then probably not going to think it's the future because it only does 124 miles. So I just hope that Mazda get their salespeople behind the whole idea of electrification and really sell the idea that this is a suitable car. It's a suitable car for a lot of people, really. Anyone that's got a driveway, this will be fine. This isn't an EV-only platform that they've built it on. It is just the CX-30 that they've stuck a battery and a powertrain into. So it's not optimized, of course, for being an EV. So I think Mazda, if they're not already, I think they really need to do something, a bespoke electric platform like all the other companies are doing. You've got Hyundai and Kia, they've got their eGMP platform. Volkswagen have their MEB platform. Anyone walking in a Mazda showroom, they're going to, the salespeople are going to say, well, what do you need the car to do? Now, anyone that says, well, I want a city car, I would hope that they say, well, have you considered this one? And I hope they don't just say, have a look at our lovely petrol cars. Because I do get the feeling that Mazda are very, very reluctant to join this electric vehicle revolution. I don't think they want to, even though they're making a big deal about it. This is 100 years of Mazda, and they have got the beautiful cork interior and everything, and they've done a really good job on this car. And also this is called the MX-30, and they give the MX prefix to cars that they're particularly pleased about, like groundbreaking cars, the MX-5 for instance. And that's what I keep thinking about, the MX-5, Mazda sports car, little roadster. That would make a fantastic EV. It's a light, nimble little fun car, and I really hope that they're already working on an EV version of that. That's what I keep thinking about. They really would have made a big splash if they'd entered the market with that. But then they probably sell a lot of MX-5s. And like other traditional automakers, they're worried about eating into their bread and butter. I also think it's important for Mazda to know that there is a demand for EVs. But at the same time, you think, well, there would be more demand if you stuck in a bigger battery, or if you had a proper EV platform that was more efficient. I've got to say, I like this car far more than I was expecting to. And I wonder if a lot of other reviewers are going to say the same thing. You'll be getting quite a few reviews saying it's compromised, because of the range and everything, but I think you have to get past that.
Turn right.
And just accept that people have different needs. People want different types of cars. And funnily enough, the Honda E is really popular with the motoring press. They love it. But I think some of the same motoring press are a bit sniffy about this. But it's just a different body style. What's the problem? I don't think there's a problem. You could argue just the issue is just that Mazda in 2021, Mazda are releasing a car with 124 mile range, when that's what we had years and years ago. But at least they've released an EV. We're still waiting on Toyota. And here we are.
You have reached your destination.
Here we are back at the quite wonderful grid serve. The Mazda charges at 6.6 kilowatts on AC, so that's like your charger at home. That will take 5 hours to charge up. Here on a 50 kilowatt charger, you'll be looking at 36 minutes to get from 20% to 80% battery. So not the quickest in the world at all, but it's fine for long journeys. You can stop 36 minutes. That's obviously enough to get yourself a coffee and sandwich and go to the toilet. There's a charging light here that flashes to tell you the status of the charging. So if we open the boot, 366 litres and 1,171 if you put the seats down. It's, I think, a pretty good sized boot. I could easily get in there. I'm not going to. Some people love suicide doors, some people don't. You open the front and then you have to open this. And that allows a nice wide entry point, which is actually pretty good if you're getting a baby seat in the back. The seats are very comfortable. This is actually a bit more forward than it would be for me, but the good thing is that if you are in the back, you can adjust it. So someone can be sat driving and they'll be like, what's going on? But so I like that. That's really good. You've got a seat pocket in the passenger seat, in the back of the passenger seat. You don't have any rear USBs. Headroom, you have a fist and a bit for me. I'm 5'10", and cup holders in the centre here, which can be lifted up, and you do get a pretty small kind of fifth person in there if you want to. But again, the comfort, the seats are just so comfortable. I really find this a comfortable car to sit in. And you do have ISOFIX as well in the back. And some lights up here. Be nice to have a sunroof because it does make it look quite dark in here. But the light interior helps. Well, one of the things that I really love is this cork. You've got cork running all the way down the centre there, and little elements of cork in the handles and things. The seats are this nice cloth with a kind of an eco leather, and up here you've got kind of a soft touch materials. Little bit of, it's not very scratchy plastic actually, but it is a bit plasticky here. But overall it looks pretty slick, I think. So we're charging at the moment. In fact, you can hear the charger making the noise, so sorry about that. We're charging at the moment, but this is a very clear display you've got. Now over here, you can see it says, that bit says charge. Now if you're on the regen, if you're doing regen braking, then that bit will dip down, that dial will dip down, and it will show you that you're charging. You've got on here, you've got your range, 97 miles, 76% battery at the moment. There's your odometer, is that what they call it, down there? And it tells you how long it's going to take to charge up. It's not telling me how many kilowatts I'm getting. That would have been nice. and I can't even tell on this charger that I'm using, I can't tell on that either. But just to look at the interior here, this is the cork, which is a nod to Mazda's past, their history since they used to make cork, and it's really nice. It's a really lovely touch, I think. In here you've got quite a good space. Yeah, my hand just keeps going down there. Quite a good space, and these bits go down there. So, yeah, that's a really good space in there. And yeah, those bits fold up. You can see the cup holder springs in there. It makes anything be quite secure. Moving to the center console here, you see that you've got all the climate controls here on a very easy to use screen. So I've turned it off at the moment, but you can see it's very simple. And if you don't like using touch screens, then you can use the buttons as well, of course. Up here you've got your navigation system, and this isn't a touch screen, so you do have to use the dial, and the dial is down here, so that is just like the BMW i3, and it does support Android Auto and CarPlay. Energy efficiency history. So at the moment you can see that it's set to, at the moment you can see that it's on 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour, which isn't great, although this isn't brilliant weather. But this is a press car, and people have obviously been driving it like they stole it. Now I'm not a big fan of these kind of things. I didn't like this on the i3 either, but it just takes a bit of getting used to. Now, one of the best things, of course, is that on the navigation that it's got, and it's not bad navigation, you do have a heads-up display that appears here, or a projected speed limit that appears there on the windscreen, which of course I can't do now because I'm charging. So the navigation seems pretty good. Entertainment-wise, you've got DAB, Bluetooth, USBs. The USBs are down the bottom here, in what I find quite a strange place, because you can't move this center console, but they are just under there. If I can get my leg out of the way. There are the USBs, so two USB-A. Okay, yeah, smartphone apps, audio off. This does have an app called Mazda Connect. EV settings, let's see what we've got. Charging schedule, so that's good, you can set a charging schedule. High voltage battery heater, so it does have a battery heater, that's interesting. Automatic, don't know why you would want to turn that off, because that's a good thing. Safety settings view. Okay, one other thing, that reminds me, safety settings, this does have a 5-star Euro NCAP crash test, so it's a very safe car. There are a whole host of other little buttons here. It's quite a buttony steering wheel, this one, isn't it? For doing your cruise control and things like that. And there you've got your Siri or Google, whatever it is. You can tell I know my Googles. Let's look at the glove compartment is okay size. Auto hold. If you don't like creep, where you move forward the moment you take your foot off the brake, then you do have auto hold. So that's great. Mazda are pretty generous with their equipment list. Even the base model has loads of stuff in it, including some really good safety features. If you go all the way up to the GT Sport Tech trim, you even get a little plug, so you can plug in your laptop or whatever. And of course it does have an app, like every good EV should have these days. Thank you very much for watching. Please press subscribe, press the bell icon, and I'll be back very soon.